Alright, welcome back. So we're now going to have a look at the sales process. So let's have another look at this workflow. So we're going to start with the sales process. So let's zoom in on that and have a see what we need to do here. So as I mentioned in the overview video, the way we get an inquiry coming in could be through a number of options, and it might be through someone contacting us through socials or them contacting us or us contacting them. Maybe phone calls and maybe emails. Might be through the website. It could be a notice on a bulletin board. It could be lots of things. Somehow we get an inquiry coming in. So with an inquiry, it's always good to capture information about the inquiry. So it's not uncommon for people to go and make an inquiry about some service or product and not really doing anything about it for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, who knows. That does happen quite a bit. So sometimes when we've got an inquiry come in, it's good to capture information about that inquiry in some sort of system. And as mentioned earlier in the previous videos, that's what we use a CRM or customer relationship database for, to manage that relationship with the customer. Also, the reason why a CRM is a good tool is because you are managing that relationship. So a good customer is one that comes back time and time again, and so it's really good to record the information about that customer in somewhere that we can easily get to when we need to. So we'll have a look at the CRM part of it first, and use that to gather information, and then from that we'll create a quote, and then we'll send that to the customer for approval, and then convert it to a sales order, and that's where we'll end up in this video today. Alright, now let's have a look at an inquiry. So what I've done is I've mocked up an email that we got, and all this information in all these courses that I do is all random. So I have generators that can randomly generate names and addresses, all those sorts of things. I try and make them look somewhat real, and that for and just so it doesn't look completely foreign. So this might be an email we received for our Morgan's Home Services. So we're running a home services business here where we do all sorts of handyman type things around the house, mowing lawns, painting houses, doing all sorts of random things. So in this case I want a doggy door put in. So can you please help me, or please give me a quote on the supply and install of a doggy door? We have a large dog, so the door needs to be large and sturdy. So we need to think about how we're going to, what do we need to know about this job? At the moment we don't really know all that much about this job, apart from that he's got a big dog, and once a doggy door put in, it's got to be reasonably sturdy, so reasonably tough. So probably sensible to go out and have a look at this job, because there's a few things we don't know. We don't really know where it's going. We don't know what it's got to go into. Is it going to go in brick? Is it going to go into wood or plaster wall, or is it going to fit inside a existing door? Do we need to cut a hole through a door? And is that door glass? Is it wood? Is it there's lots and lots and lots of questions here. So it'd be prudent for us to go out and actually have a look at the job. So it'll only take you 15 minutes to go out and assess it. And one of the other good things about this software too that I use is that it all runs on a tablet or your phone for that matter. You could do this entire thing, this entire workflow on a phone if you wanted to. I'll be doing it on a computer here just because it's convenient for me to record. So what I've done is I've moved ahead, and now we're moving into the software, and we can see we've got lots and lots of modules installed, and it's actually, if you have a look at the apps, there's about 40,000 or so apps that you can install for all sorts of things if you want to. This is just a handful of them. So let's start off. This is free. This version I'm using here. There is also a commercial version that I also support, or my business also supports, and so we do both. So let's start off with, first let's go back onto the task at hand, and we'll start this workflow, and we'll start with our CRM. What I can do here is let's say I've gone out to Phil's house and I've assessed it, and it's just a doggy door. It's got to go into an existing wooden door, just the back, just let dog out into the backyard and back in whenever he wishes. So it's a pretty straightforward job. I don't need to worry about brick. I don't need to worry about cutting holes in glass or doing any of those sorts of funky things. So, and whilst I was there, I had a look at the catalogue we've got from our hardware suppliers, and we've gone through and worked out which door it was, and this is really good. So it's really good to have the customer there saying, yes, I like that particular door. There's nothing worse than getting out and installing a door and they turn around and say, oh look, that's not what I wanted. So it's always good to get these things done up front. So we've gone through the catalogue, picked out the door, and what I'll do is I'll paste that in here, the name of the door, the doggy door, which Hakuna Pet Large Black Super, which is straight out of the catalogue. So it's, what is this effectively? It's a super tough, which is important, and it's a large one. So large, super tough doggy door, black, good. Yeah, that's great. So we don't really need anything else, because all we need to do is cut a hole in the door, put in a doggy door. The door comes with all the screws it needs, all that kind of stuff. So that's all good. We don't really need anything else from what we can tell at this point. So the next thing we do is estimate time. So whichever way you want to do this, first I like to go, okay, if it's going to take me some time to pick up some parts, what's that going to be? So it is going to depend on do I pick up the parts on the way there? Do I get the parts delivered to the site? There's lots of questions there, but I'm going to put in an hour to go and pick up the parts. So that'll include driving to the store, going and finding the part, picking up, go and pay for it. All these things take time. So an hour is actually quite reasonable. The next thing we want to do is think about our travel time to and from. So we've got to get to the site and we've got to get home from the site or back to our office from the site. So that's time too, taking driving backwards and forwards. So, and there might be, it may be that we need to add a little bit of buffer in there too, because maybe we'll get stuck in traffic or all sorts of things. So I'm going to put in 1.5 hours for travel, because that's probably realistic depending on where you live, that sort of thing. If you're just around the corner, it might be a different story. So I'm going to put in 1.5. And then to do the actual job, I'm going to say an hour. Probably shouldn't take that long. An hour probably good by the time you cut the hole, insert the doggy door, pack up all your gear, clean up, make sure the customer's happy, all those sorts of things. An hour's probably a bit on the light side. Maybe you want to put in a bit more. Anyway, up to you. So what we do at the end is we add those three up, so that adds to 3.5 hours. 1, 2, 3.5. So it's going to take us about 3.5 hours to do this job. All right. So now we've got enough information. So let's go back to our process. So we've got our inquiry. We've been out and visited the site and gathered some more information, and we've entered all that into our CRM, into our customer relationship database. So at the moment, this is just an entry in the CRM. It's not a quote, it's not a sales order, it's nothing. It's really just gathering some information. So what do we have to do next? Next we have to send the quote off to Phil. So let's see how to do that. Alright, so it's time to create our quotation. So we'll click on the new quotation button and it pre-populates with all the information we've already put in, so that's awesome. And what we also want to do is put in some payment terms here. So we've got all this information already set. The expiry date, I'll mention the expiry date first actually. Something people sometimes forget to put in is an expiry date. Now potentially, if you've given someone a quote and you don't have an expiration date on it, they can come back to you in 10 years' time and say, hey, this doesn't expire, this is still legit, are you going to honour this, that sort of thing. So rather than having that different conversation, we're obviously going to say no. It's good to set an expiry date, always. I always do it. The next important thing is the terms. We want to make sure that we get paid immediately. So as a rule of thumb, any jobs I do, I want to get paid immediately. Any bills that I've got to pay, I want them on terms. I want them on either 30 days or 45 or 60 day terms. That way I can do the job. I can use the products that I've got to use, all the materials and things I've got to use on the job. But then I'll get paid for the job being when I finish the job, and that will give me the money to pay then my bills for the materials and things like that. But anyway, I'll keep going. So next thing we want to do is add some products in here. So first thing we'll do is add our doggy door in. Put in door, and that should give me search for the product. This product here is the product I named by the name I use, but I can put a different product in. Now this description is what the customer sees. So if I want to change that and call it something different, I can. So I can have an internal reference for it, and then one that I let my customers see. How many of these do we want to use in this job? Well, just one. They're in units, and they cost $153. And I've got a margin showing here. That's how much money. So I buy these for, must be $102 to make a $51 margin on it. So that means that I buy for 102 and sell for 153, so I'll make $51 just on that sale. All right. And then let's keep going. And the next thing we do is we want to add some labour in here, which I've created some products for. I've got 3 products. So I've got fixed, which just means it doesn't matter how long it takes me. I'm going to charge you X amount of labour. And then ordered is and timesheets are very similar in nature. I won't go into too much detail on these right now, but with a timesheet, which is your typical other option, just means you're going to only charge for the actual time you use based on a timesheet. Or ordered just means you're going to be based on the quantity that was ordered, not on how much was delivered. So anyway, they're very similar to fixed, except this is more like a prepayment than an ordered. Anyway, getting off track a little bit. Again, we might not like this fixed in here, so we might just remove that so the customer doesn't see the labour, the fixed part of it, but we know it's a fixed cost here. How many hours? If you remember from our CRM, we had 3.5 hours in here. So let me just get all that, 3.5. And click away, it goes and does a calculation now. So we're charging $100 an hour for the labour. So it works out the margin that we make on this. So we make $140 on this particular component. So 3.5 times 100 minus whatever we've got as our cost means that our margin is $140. So what does this mean? It means that our labour is what we've done. I think in the system we've set that up to $60. So this will be $60 an hour. So this covers our labour. So this is on top of the money we make on top of that. So add those two together and we get $503. And then we've got to add our GST onto it. So we get $553 is how much we're going to charge. Now, good down here, it tells us our margin. We're going to make nearly $200 on this particular job. So that's pretty good. Just as I say, it's over and top of paying all the wages and all those sorts of things. We're making $200. All right. So that's ready to go now. So that's let's go back to our process. We're up to our quotation is nearly ready. So what we've got to do is send it off to the customer for approval. So that's the step we're at now. So what we can do here is send it by email. Click on that button. And you can see we've got our bits and pieces in here. We've got who it's going to go to. And the system will automatically send this out. We don't need to jump out, copy quotes, put them into emails, send the email off, come back, all that kind of stuff. It's done all from within the system. I can see the quotations attached, and I can even add more attachments in here. So let's say I want to add an attachment for the brochure for the doggy door. So that Phil's got the quotation plus the brochure. I can do that. And I can actually change these templates if I want. I can choose different templates if I want to create lots of different templates, but depending on how I want to run my business. But this is the default one. That's fine. So I can either send that now, but what I won't, I'll just discard that because I want to point out something else too. At the moment, this is in a quotation phase. What will happen is when we send it, it'll move into the quotation sent phase, and then once it's approved, it'll move into the sales order phase. So let's just watch that happen. I'll click on this send by mail button again. I'll click the send button. You'll notice that it's changed now. It's into a quotation sent. So the status has changed for this particular quote. And we're waiting on Phil to approve it. So Phil will get that via email, and he can either email us back, and when he does, it'll actually come into the system. So let me scroll down a little bit here. You'll notice down the bottom here, this is what we call the chatter. So this is all the conversations and things can get recorded in here. So as I said before, jumping out into your email and sending it via email is kind of like a disconnect from the system. If you do it all within the system, then you've got the whole history here. So later on, if there's some dispute or whatever else, you've got all the information in one place. So Phil might log in and say, hey, yeah, I approve that. Or we might send an email back saying, yeah, I approve that. Please go ahead. Or I might turn around and say, thanks, but I'm going with someone else, and that's fine too. So let's have a look at how else Phil can see this. So Phil can actually, let's have a look at if Phil logs into the system. I'll click on the preview button. This is what Phil would see. He'd see this quotation. And you can see I've actually hidden the quantities and things from labour. This is something that I've written for this system so that we can hide the quantities, and that's a little tick box on the product itself. And so sometimes some people don't like to show how many units of labour that you've allocated, that sort of thing. And this is a fixed price, so it really doesn't matter how much time I spend, and it's always going to be $350. I can see my payment terms are down the bottom there. All the information is here. So Phil can click on and accept that and digitally sign for that if we wanted to. And you'll notice down the bottom here there's also you can see the conversations and things as well. So I can say, yep, please go ahead and send that. And then so I'm logged in as me at the moment, but that would say Phil if Phil actually did that. So let's go back to edit mode. And if we scroll down again, in the chatter I can see Phil's comment down here, yep, please go ahead. Or he might say no, and that's fine too. So before we move on, let's just have another look at this process. So at the moment, he said we're at this customer approval phase, and he said yes, so we can now convert this to a sales order. However, he might have said no, and then he might have said, look, can you just change this or change that or add this or remove that or change the colour or whatever else. And so if they're still interested, we just go back, revise that quote, send it back for approval again. We can do that as many times as we like. Or you might come back and turn around and say, well, yeah, no, I don't want it at all. And so still interested would be no, and so just drop out and we just end there. So we wouldn't go any further. That'd be the end of the process. But he said yes, so this is good, we got a job. So what we can do now is confirm this quotation, and this will move from being quote sent to sales order. And we are in the sales module here, so we'll confirm. And that's now ready, and you'll notice that we've got a lot of extra buttons up top here. We've got some other stuff going on down the bottom here. We've got some colour red things going on here, and we've got some numbers and extra bits and pieces that happen now that it's a proper sales order. So there's a lot of things that happen in the background here, all to do with other modules, and that's why we've got these extra links up at the top. So let's go through this quickly. I've created a project where all of these type of sales orders go that have a labour component. And so this becomes a task, the labour becomes a task in a project. And that way I can record the times the hours against that project. I've also got some deliveries here because I've got to deliver this to site. We've got some options for how that might happen. So we might pick it up or we might get it delivered. So there's lots of options there. So at some point we've got to tell the system how we got it to site, that sort of thing. There's also a more button here, and we can see that we've actually got a purchase order here. So I'll go into that in a little bit in more detail later, but basically we've got to go and buy these doggy doors, and that's why we've got a red mark here, because we don't have enough in our shed or wherever in our truck. So we're going to go and buy some. In the next video, we'll go through the operations part of it, where we see how we go and get everything out to site and then actually do the job. So now we've got the sales order. Let's have a look at our process. We've had our inquiry. We've gathered some more information and put all that into our CRM, so we've got it for future reference. We've created our quote, and then we've sent it to the customer, and the customer has approved it. And so once it's approved, we've then created a sales order, which starts a whole chain of events. And that's where we can look at in the next video, where we'll look at the operations part, where we schedule a job, we make sure we've got all our parts we need, and if we don't, we're going to go and buy those parts, and we've got a shopping list that we can do so with, and then we'll do the job, and then we'll mark everything off. So that's parts, and I should actually have mentioned too that that's mark off the parts and labour component before we can invoice for the job. All right. So that's that part done, and next we'll move into operations. So I'll see you in the next video.